Welcome back to the deep dive. So if you've ever felt that slight knot of anxiety tightening up right as you approach an international check-in counter, this deep dive is definitely for you. We are jumping into a set of really pragmatic sources, basically a master guide on how to navigate the entire airport journey using English that works and, more importantly, makes you feel confident.
Right. And that anxiety you mentioned, I think it's often rooted in this fear of having to be perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
The fear that one wrong phrase is just going to derail your entire trip.
Yeah.
But our sources, they completely reject that.
Okay.
Our mission today is all about realizing that success in travel communication, it relies on being clear, not perfect. We're just going to unpack this guide step by step.
Chronologically, right?
Yeah, chronologically, focusing on those short, polite, high-impact phrases that just cut through all the noise.
I love that. This isn't a grammar lesson, it's a strategy session. So we're moving through the airport's 6 critical stages, breaking it all down, and we're starting right at the beginning. Step 1, the check-in counter. This first interaction really sets the tone for everything. You're dealing with airline staff, and they have a very specific transactional job to do. They don't want a whole story.
No.
They just need basically 2 pieces of information. The source highlights the 2 most common questions. Can I see your passport, please? And where are you flying today?
And this is where our mantra, clear, not perfect, starts immediately. The staff asks a polite question, can I see? But your job is to give the shortest, clearest reply possible.
Okay, so what does that look like?
Well, for the passport, the best reply is just a confident gesture while you hand it over and saying, sure, here you go.
Okay. You're acknowledging the request and doing the action at the same time.
Precisely.
So why is, sure, here you go, better than saying, I don't know, something more formal like, yes, I can give you my passport now?
Because in these situations, efficiency is respect. The longer you take, the more words you use, the more complicated the whole interaction feels. The goal is just to move things forward.
Keep it simple.
Keep it simple. And when they ask your destination, it's the same thing. I'm flying to London, or even just Tokyo. The simpler the sentence, the easier it is for them to process, no matter what their own English level is.
That makes so much sense. And that clarity is even more important when you get to the next little hurdle, which is the bags. The staff needs to know what you've got. Do you have any bags to check?
Right. And this is where you need to use some specific but simple terminology. Knowing the difference between a checked bag and a carry-on is really key.
So you just say,
yes, I have one checked bag. Or if you're traveling light, no, just this carry-on. The sources really stress that using those correct terms helps prevent a lot of follow-up questions.
But let's talk about the moment that strikes fear into everyone's heart. The overweight bag.
The dreaded notification.
Yeah, you hear, I'm sorry, this bag is too heavy.
And the panic response is to start arguing, right? Or explaining why you absolutely needed 5 pairs of shoes. But the functional response, according to the guide, is to immediately ask about the solution. The key phrases are, oh no, is it over the limit? And then, this is the crucial part, the action question, can I remove some items?
Oh, that's brilliant.
It signals you intend to comply, and that just de-escalates the whole situation right away.
That phrase, can I remove some items, is pure gold. It shifts the whole focus from the problem to the solution. It shows confidence even when you're feeling, flustered.
Exactly. And speaking of confidence, let's talk about what the sources call the second passport. This is like the universal communication tool that works everywhere.
Ah, the politeness words. Please, thank you, and excuse me. The guide says these are just as important as your actual passport.
They absolutely are. Saying thank you very much after you get your boarding pass isn't just being nice.
Right.
It's a signal of competence. It tells the staff and everyone else that you're organized. You know what's going on. When you use short, clear statements with consistent politeness, you minimize friction.
Okay, politeness achieved. Now we leave the check-in counter and we head into the places where the stakes feel, a lot higher. Security and immigration. This is where the communication really shifts from a polite dialogue to just strictly regulated instructions.
Right. At security, the key is just rapid comprehension and compliance. The officers are giving clear commands, and they're often saying them really quickly. Please put your laptop in a separate tray.
Take off your shoes and belt. Yeah.
Exactly.
And your response here isn't a conversation. It's just an acknowledgement. A simple sure or will do. But what if you don't actually catch what they said? You can't just stand there looking confused.
That's a great question. Because trying to sound too sophisticated by saying, could you kindly reiterate the directive is just going to fail.
Right.
The high-impact phrase here is simple and humble. Excuse me, could you repeat that? That's it. You use excuse me to get their attention and repeat that to get the information. It shows you're in command without making things complicated.
Much more effective. Okay, and the guide also flags that critical question about prohibited items. Do you have any liquids, sharp objects, or large electronics?
Honesty and brevity. That's your armor here. You need to declare the item, not apologize for it. If you have a computer, the clear reply is, yes, I have a laptop in this bag.
Not, well, I think I have a small bottle of lotion, but I'm not sure if it's too big.
Exactly. The moment you do that, you introduce ambiguity, and security officers are trained to investigate ambiguity. Just be declarative and let the system do its job.
Okay, so once we're through security, we face passport control. If security is about your luggage, immigration is about, well, it feels like it's about your whole life story.
And this is where anxiety can be at its highest.
For sure.
And this is also where the power of short answers really peaks. An immigration official is just assessing risk. The second you give a long, complicated answer, they stop listening for the facts and they start listening for deception.
Right. So let's break down those three big questions. First one, what's the purpose of your visit?
Short, definitive, and truthful. If you're there to see the sights, just say, I am here for vacation.
And what if it's, a bit of both? Maybe you're visiting, but also working remotely.
The sources advise focusing on the primary permitted activity. Unless they ask for more detail, you lead with the truth that matches your visa. I am visiting my sister.
Okay. Makes sense. And then the next one, how long will you stay?
Specifics are everything here. Don't use vague terms like a few weeks. Give a number. I will stay for 14 days or 3 weeks. That brevity is seen as competence.
And finally, where will you stay?
Name a location. If it's a hotel, the Sunrise Hotel in downtown Boston, if it's family. With my cousin John Smith at this address. The source even says having the address written down, ready to show them, while you say the simple phrase, that's the most efficient way to do it.
It all comes back to that mantra, short, truthful answers.
It stops the official from even thinking, I need to ask a follow-up question.
Exactly. Don't give them a reason. If you start worrying about perfect grammar, you just slow down and, you look more suspicious.
So now that we've navigated those high-stakes checkpoints, we can sort of breathe a little. We're moving on to steps 4 and 5. The waiting game at the gate, and then the flight itself.
Right.
And this is where your English shifts from verification to more about utility and social stuff.
The gate area can feel like slow motion chaos. Delays happen. The guide gives us some really crucial phrasing for politely asking about the flight status so you don't sound like a demanding tourist.
And again, that second passport is essential. You start with, excuse me.
Always.
Then you ask a question that's seeking information, not starting an argument. Excuse me, is the flight delayed? Or maybe, when will we board? The framing is so important because it shows you'll accept whatever they say next.
Right, whether the answer is in 30 minutes or in 2 hours.
And the confident reply to that update is just, thank you for the update. Simple as that.
Okay, but beyond the flight status, the gate is where you need English for practical things. You need to find a plug or coffee or a restroom.
And this is where we use these location and utility questions. So instead of just grunting bathroom at someone.
Which people do.
Which people definitely do. You use the full, polite phrase, excuse me, is there a restroom nearby? Or a really useful one, is there a charging station, please? The sources really emphasize that simple question structure. Is there a cane? Gets you help really quickly.
What about the essential pre-flight question, especially on a long trip, about finding water or snacks?
Yes. Can I buy water after this gate? There's a quick check to make sure you don't rush past the shops only to find, barren wasteland by your boarding door.
I've done that. It's the worst.
It's just patience and polite utility questions. They signal a traveler who's in control.
Okay, so we've waited, we've charged our phone, and now we're finally on the plane. Onboard communication, the guide says, splits into 2 types, talking to the flight crew and talking to your seat neighbor.
Right. For the flight crew, the sources get a little bit technical, but it's a really useful nugget. They focus on using modal verbs.
Okay, so words like may or could.
Exactly. Using may or could turns what could sound like a demand into a polite request. So instead of, give me a blanket.
Which sounds so rude.
It's, excuse me, may I have some water? Or, could I get a blanket, please? That phrasing just manages the whole interaction so much better.
That small change in wording makes a huge difference. But what about the person next to you? You might need to just start a simple conversation or, ask them to move for a second.
These are really simple, low-risk social moments. For the first contact, you stick to the absolute basics. Hi, is this seat taken? Or the classic icebreaker, where are you traveling to?
Right.
And if you need to get past them, you just pair the action with that magic word. Excuse me, could you move for a moment, please? It keeps everything minimal and friendly.
We've covered almost the whole journey. Check-in, security, customs, the gate, the flight. Now for that final push. Step 6, arrival and customs at your destination.
You're tired, you're probably jet-lagged, but you still need to navigate that last little bit with directional English.
Absolutely. Fatigue is real, and this is where just having clarity is so important. The guide gives us the 2 most crucial navigational phrases for when you get off the plane.
And these are all about process, right? Getting your bags and clearing any final checks.
That's it. You need to ask, where can I find the baggage claim? And if there's another screening, which way is customs? Notice that structure. Where can I find? It's a complete, easy-to-understand question for anyone to answer with a simple point or a direction.
And even if you feel completely exhausted at this point, the guide's final reminder is that politeness still matters. A polite, tired traveler is an easy person to help.
It's that consistent use of polite language that really marks you as a confident traveler. You haven't just learned phrases, you've learned the communication psychology of travel.
So what does it all mean when we put all 6 steps together? Let's zoom out and look at the synthesis, the extra tips that kind of bind this whole experience together. The sources really emphasize nonverbal communication, which I think we often forget. They say 2 key actions: smile and stay calm. Your physical presence reinforces everything you say. If you look stressed and your voice is shaky, even perfect English sounds complicated.
But a simple smile is universal.
It's universal. It just projects that you're not a threat, you're just a traveler trying to get somewhere.
That is such a powerful, simple piece of advice. The sources really boil the whole mission down to this one idea. Small phrases generate big confidence. It's the consistent, correct use of those high-impact, polite phrases that makes the journey seamless.
And that brings us all the way back to the most important nugget of all. Focus on being understood, not on being perfect. If your goal is transactional, get a ticket, pass security, find your bag, then clarity, brevity, and politeness are always going to be more effective than complexity.
By internalizing these short phrases, you become proactive in your communication.
Which is the hallmark of a confident global traveler.
That confidence boost is exactly what we wanted to deliver today. We've gone through the 6 essential stages. We've broken down these complex interactions into simple, actionable English and really reinforced the power of that second passport.
We have. But now, having mastered this high-pressure transactional airport environment, here's a final thought for you to mull over.
Okay.
If focusing on clear, not perfect, is the key to managing international airports, how could applying that exact same mantra simplify your English in other intimidating travel situations? Like, say, negotiating a taxi fare, or trying to quickly order a complicated meal from a server who speaks limited English at a really busy restaurant.
That really opens up a whole new world of applying this kind of focused knowledge. Thank you for diving so deep into these essential sources with us. Until the next deep dive, travel confidently and stay informed.